Content warning. Insects, eyes, blindness.
Welcome to the Rue Papers.
Coffee run completed. Sorry for all the dead time in the recording. Dead time? Is that the right phrase? Sounds appropriately ominous. Anyway, I just popped out to get the coffee, and then Rose cornered me and insisted I pop into her office for a little chat. She was asking how I was, and was I okay, and did I need anything. It was very suspicious, and also very unsettling. I hate being asked questions like that. What am I supposed to say? Even before all this? Yes, I'm fine, despite all the stuff. No, I can't define the stuff. No, it's nothing you can fix. You're my boss. Stop pretending you care and just tell me what to do and then pay me. Anyway, it's just... I don't know whether to believe her or not. On all past evidence, she's lying. She's trying to manipulate me and use me for some nefarious end or something. But there are seconds, just flashes beneath all the management training bullshit where I see something real. I'm not sure what to make of that. Never mind, I have another story, and I found this one the old-fashioned way. I went into the archives and pulled it out. That's right, this one did not fall on my head, or got handed to me by someone, or mysteriously appear, or was delivered to me by a fox in the middle of a suspiciously bright moonlit night. That one hasn't actually happened to me yet, but you know, at this stage, the story could appear any damn way, and I just accept it. Okay, here we go. No name, no date, typewritten on foolscap, Rue-headed paper. When we found him, his body was entirely rotted. There was no way we could have known what happened to him. He wasn't really a Rue researcher. He was one of those that had an interest, would do his own independent research and pass it on to us. Occasionally slipped as a tidbit, but he had no idea of the battle we were actually fighting, or what was behind our work. I liked him. He reminded me why I had started this work in the first place. He wanted to scientifically investigate and prove the existence of the supernatural. We spent a lot of time together, discussing the stories we had heard, what we could discover, what happened to our friends. He had a special interest in cursed objects, which, come to think of it, should have been a warning in the first place. His room was packed full of supposed tribal deities, most of them knocked off in Commercial Road for a shilling, and bits of dried animals that even the Natural History Museum didn't want, and books written in obscure languages. Complete gibberish. There were a few genuine objects. That portrait, you know the one, and a pile of records that was sternly noted never to play, and that he took to a quarry and smashed. And that bloody cheap vase. But I didn't recognise the actual object. I didn't recognise what had killed him. I thought he'd had a heart attack, and that in the hot summer flies had descended quickly and eaten him up. Horrible, but it's what flies do. Perfectly natural. The police had called me in. There was a note on his file, in case of death, call Rue. Well, specifically me. The police seemed rather incurious, I have to say. Even if not a suspicious man, he had 3 rooms stuffed with curios and a bit of an odd reputation. I don't like the way they took it so calmly. Of course, I didn't know then. But to be fair, they were no more competent than I was. It was a hot day. That room stank, even after his body had been removed. And I had no interest in hanging around and digging through his belongings. I gathered together some notes, his diary, and stuffed them into a box, and then called the funeral parlour. He was buried almost immediately, and I'm glad to say that almost all of Rue turned up. He wasn't strictly one of us, but we all came to say goodbye. He was loved. He had no blood family, but he was deeply loved. I didn't read the diary right away. I had an awful feeling that reading it would be the end of it all. The end of our friendship. Once I read his last words, there would be nothing new between us, and I found it difficult to bear. I would save it until the winter, the days before Christmas, and spend that time with the last words of my friend, and say my farewell. So when it started, I had no idea what was happening. The first sign was an itch on my palm. I was sat in the library reading up on something that turned out to be nothing, and I couldn't stop scratching my palm. "That's supposed to be a sign you're getting money, Cecil," the librarian said to me, nodding at my palm scratching. "I hadn't even noticed I was doing it," I said. We shrugged. It was hardly the oddest thing about that day. We were researching ships that had sailed into harbour perfectly, and every soul on board was dead. But the next day, it was still happening, and now the feeling had crept up my arm. "Stop that," Chiefly said when I had my weekly meeting with him and I kept rolling at my sleeve to scratch. "It's unhygienic." "Sorry, can't stop," I said. "I can't seem to stop itching." Of course, that piqued his interest. He took my arm and studied it. "It's a bit red, but you keep scratching it. Perhaps an allergic reaction?" "I spent all day in the library yesterday. Perhaps it's the dust?" "Or spiders? Let me know if you see spiders, won't you?" The scratching continued, and I went to the Rue doctor. Thankfully, it was Genevieve, who is very understanding of the work we do, and incredibly calm. She will deal with the physical manifestations of an eldritch being possessing one's soul, and badly torn muscles from falling down the stairs of yet another abandoned house, with the same level of seriousness, and bless her for it. And like Clive, who has to be talked into believing this could be something supernatural every single time, even after the whole exorcism thing. "It could be an allergy," she said, studying my arm carefully. The rash had spread all the way up to my shoulder now. "Take a few days off, don't bring anything from Rue into your home, leave all possible contaminants here, and see if it gets worse. I can prescribe you a cream. What does it feel like?" I thought for a moment. Like ants under my skin. A standard allergic feeling, but you have to stop scratching. You're beginning to draw blood. "I can't help it," I said, scratching again. She lightly pushed my hand away from my arm. "I'll tell you what my sister does when my nephew can't stop scratching. He's only a baby, but it works. Cut your nails and tie mittens over your hands." I did as she said, and went home, and cut my nails, and went to bed, feeling slightly ridiculous with the winter mittens tied over my hands. The itching was driving me mad. But at least with the mittens on, all I did was rub at it, rather than tearing at my flesh as I had before. Genevieve was right. Blood was beginning to seep through my shirt sleeves. Luckily, she had also prescribed me a sedative so I could sleep. I had bad dreams that night. About ants crawling over my body and nipping me with their pincers. Note to self, do ants have pincers? It was hardly surprising, as when I woke up, the rash and associated pain had spread to both my arms and my torso. I held up my hands, and the mittens were still there, as clean as when I went to bed. But when I looked down, my arms and my chest were torn to ribbons. It looked as if I had been ripping at my skin all night, and yet that was impossible. That was when I started to feel afraid. I went to Genevieve and told her, "Stay here today and sleep here, and I'll keep a watch on you," she said to me. It was as much out of professional curiosity as concern, and I appreciated both feelings. I was scared, but also puzzled. Was this purely medical? I stayed in her lab all day, reading both medical journals and some records that Cecil had brought up to me, trying to find a possible explanation. But my concentration was lacking as I couldn't sit still. My skin felt like it was crawling. I had to get up and walk around to relieve the feeling, and the winter mittens had been switched to thick leather gloves after I had almost worn away the wool rubbing at my skin. Genevieve kept strict watch on what I touched, ate and drank, and checked my measurements every hour, but could find no correlation. Even as the rash spread down my body, she applied all kinds of creams, but nothing seemed to work. "I'm almost tempted to try mayonnaise," she said at one point. "I can't understand. There's nothing in the lab that could trigger a reaction like this." "Jen, I'm scared," I admitted to her. "What if this is something more? It seemed to get worse overnight." "I'll watch you tonight," she said. "I'll see whatever it is as it happens." She settled me on the camp bed in her lab as darkness fell, and sat in her chair to watch over me and make notes. Given all that was happening, I found this comforting. To have a friend watch over one in the dark hours was a comfort I had found in the war, and I found that I had missed it. I fell asleep easily. I was woken hours later by Jen grabbing my arm and shaking me urgently. "Wake up! Now, Gordon!" I was startled awake and sat up to see Jen looking at me, her eyes wide. Then she looked down at my body. I had fallen asleep in my shirt. Now my shirt was torn to shreds, and beneath it my skin oozed blood from 1,000 tiny scratches. Did I do that? No, it just appeared as I watched you. It just appeared. We called in Cheveley then. "Like ants," Cheveley said, studying my ravaged body. "You said it felt like ants under your skin? And some ants can do this sort of damage. Not so fast, perhaps, or on a human, but yes, like ants. Invisible ants, because I can't see them," Jen told him, slightly impatiently. "Some ants and insects are translucent and therefore invisible to the naked eye." Jen swept her hand across my body, across the ripped flesh, and the few smooth patches left. "Can they be felt?" "I feel nothing," she asked. Chiefly nodded gravely. Although he had his doubts about women working, he had come to respect Jen, especially as she was one of the few that dared argue with him. Gordon, does it feel as if ants are crawling across your skin? Please be precise. Precision is important, Chiefly asked, preparing to make a note. Over it, I gasped. The pain was intense now, and I felt very close to passing out from it. Burrowing? No. Biting, and scratching, and crawling, and thank you, that will do. Doctor, please keep him safe. How, exactly? I have no idea. Do whatever you think is best. Smith, I need your help. I need a timeline of when this started. Which is when we thought about my friend's papers. As I thought back, I realized this had started a few days after I had collected them. I had glanced through them that day, the day of the funeral, although I still had not opened the diary. However, it was the only deviation from my usual routine. Chiefly went to collect them, whilst Jen treated my wounds as best she could. But no sooner would she patch up one cut than another would appear. This reminds me of poltergeist cases, she said to me. Have you read those? Scratches appear on the victims, often with no discernible cause. It feels real. I mean, it feels like something really happening. I feel them on me. I feel them crawl over me. I feel them. I know, but I feel them inside me, Jen. I feel them burrow beneath my skin. I feel them crawl down my spine. Inside my lungs. Oh God, Jen! I'm breathing them! And then I vomited blood. Chiefly returned later with a box of notes. I was lying on the bed, a tube carrying a blood transfusion in my arm. It's internal now, she whispered to him. I writhed in the bed, feeling the bites inside me. I could feel them scuttling down my spine, crawling through my veins. I felt the tickle of their feet on my heart. Make it stop, I begged, and Chiefly put his hand on my shoulder. It didn't make me feel better. I shrugged it off, unable to bear the weight of one more touch. He was not offended. He seemed to understand. He sat down and went through the notes, and that seemed to help. To see him there, in my sight, solving the problem. I see, he said, after a while. It happened to him, didn't it? I asked, as Jen gave me a sedative. My friend. It appears so. He collected cursed objects. Chiefly nodded. A foolish hobby at the best of times. Yet it seemed he had some very interesting contacts. Perhaps we should have recruited him. He didn't like to be told what to do, I gasped. Chiefly nodded and put the notes to one side. I have to consult with some people, he said. Doctor, perhaps you may find something useful in the notes. He placed the box on the table when he left, and I was there with Jen, staring at her. She watched me back, doing her best, her very best, to keep me alive. Tell me where you feel it, she said. Help me know how to treat it. In my stomach. I feel them biting me in my stomach. And in my throat. They are crawling up and down my throat. They scrabble beneath my skin and my spine. God, Jen! They're winding themselves up and down my spine. What do I do? Perhaps he left a clue. She opened the battered wooden box and looked at the notes, leafing through them, skipping to the end. What he's written, he felt the same. It all gets incoherent in the end. I hear them chittering in my ears. I can feel them tearing at my heart. He said it was a curse, that if he could burn the locusts, but he never found it. My mouth is full of them. They're moving upwards, Jen. Wait, please, wait. What is it? Where's the locust? An idol? A painting? What? He had so many things. Where did it start? Let me see. Putney. He says it's Putney. He went to a house close in Putney. Something ordinary then. Something unsuspected. It's worse. It's got worse. Something you touched. Oh, God. Oh, God. They're behind my eyes, Jen. I can feel them there. Ordinary. Unsuspected. Not obvious. Something you had. Jen! The box! Jen! Burn the box! They're inside my eyes! With the last of my sight, I saw Jen fling the box into the fire. I felt it burning through my body as if 1,000 tiny flames scorched every inch of me. And then I passed out. I am still alive. My lungs are damaged. My stomach cannot tolerate much beyond cold soup. My eyes are gone. Jen takes care of me as best she can. She is a good friend. And chiefly, he at least feels guilty. I expected something exotic, he said. Not a cheap wooden box from Putney. Didn't Dr. D live in Putney? Mortlake. And we can't blame everything on Dr. D. I don't think we can blame anything on him, to be honest. I spend my days listening to phonograph recordings. We have hundreds of recordings of sessions and stories. I have a Braille keyboard and I have learned to type. I am learning so much. I live here, at Rue. So I am here at night. At night, when the whispers come. My God, the things I've heard. Be careful, Beatrice. Be careful of the flames. Phonograph records? I'd like to hear those. Where can I find them? There's 1 or 2 down here, but I'll have to go looking. So, there it is. At least this Rue researcher survived, although Smith? Chiefly mentioned a Smith as having died. Still, it's a common name. And 2 doctors, Genevieve and Clive. And a name for that librarian, Cecil. I'm beginning to get a picture now. These people are becoming real to me. I wonder if I can find photographs of them. I want to remember them. They seem to have been forgotten. Surely someone noticed, wrote about it or recorded it somehow. There are masses of stories about secret societies and conspiracies and weird stuff. And yet somehow, that battle between the Ellingtons and Rue seems to have been overlooked. No memorial for those Rue researchers. Perhaps death certificates? Newspaper reports? Something to let me know what happened to them. Because none of them seem to have come to an easy end. Why did they do it? Why keep going when... And I am having a moment of self-revelation, aren't I? Damn it, Finn. You'll remember me, won't you? When I inevitably die from my brain being eaten by wasps, or driven to the point of madness by disembodied voices, or I have my soul stolen and replaced, or flames. You'll remember me. Don't forget me, Finn. You'll listen to my voice, won't you? Thank you for listening to the Rue Papers. Written, created, and performed by Emma Butler. Early episodes and bonus materials can be found on my Patreon. Remember, listener, some stories should not be told. But then again, aren't those exactly the kind of stories you want to hear?